I'm here with my friend John. We're at the beach, at the shore, as we call it here on the East Coast in New Jersey. And John was the first person to read Bankrupt You. And actually, he read it in manuscript form. See, we're on our front porch over here, people walking by and stuff like that. But the reason we're doing this is because this is where it all started. And John was the first one to read the book. We gave him the manuscript, particularly the 10 places where money is, or the 10 money traps. And John sat on the beach and read them, and then we went fishing together and we talked about them. So, so John, tell us a little bit about some of the revelations you got when you first started hearing about this concept that colleges may not have your kids' top interest in at the top of their list.
Well, it's interesting because it first started out with the timing was impeccable because I had my first son of four kids heading to college. So my first one was a freshman. Matter of fact, he had just scheduled classes right before we came down to the beach. So the timing was perfect. So the first thing was that I noticed right off the bat was he had already scheduled his classes first week of August. And as a parent, I'm assuming, okay, he's 19 years old. It's time for him to be an adult and schedule and listen to them, and they have his best advice, and they have his back, so to speak, as far as what he should do moving forward.
And what did you find out?
So the first thing is, I had no place in the process whatsoever. He had scheduled his classes, and the first thing I noticed about the book is you mentioned about taking classes that are appropriate for life, that you can use in life. And immediately I noticed that these were not classes that anybody could use. And I knew that he had a lot of elective opportunities, but these classes were, again, questionable whether he could use these and apply them in day-to-day life in the future.
And John, you said that as we started to talk about this, that you began talking to your son.
Yes.
And tell us about that.
So I became talking to him. So I talked to him roughly about the idea. Well, firstly, in the book, it really talks about empowering the parent to be involved in the process. And I immediately felt unempowered. So when I read that first few chapters, I realized that I have a place here, that I'm not on the sideline just watching my son do this. So we immediately, after I had read that part of the book, talked to him about, okay, let's change your classes. Let's get something that's going to be practical that you can use on a day-to-day basis, and that you can use for your credits moving forward.
That's really interesting. So uh, I'm trying to think where I want to go from here. Uh, how about tell me some of the talks you had with your son? Like
Mm-hmm.
what was the gist of what that was?
So, with the price of college, it's the first thing right off the bat. It's so expensive. So my big thing with him was, are we getting return on investment? Is this going to be something you can use in the future? And I sometimes would even question the utility of college unless you really have a true goal. I'm a physical therapist and a chiropractor, and I absolutely needed all my education to reach my passion. But someone else may not. So we talked about, okay, where do you see yourself going? What's your vision of who you want to be? And he started out with the idea that he wanted to make money, which makes sense. We all want to make money. He took some business courses and realized it wasn't for him. His ultimate goal was to become a clinical psychologist, get his master's and then a doctorate in psychology, but he needed an undergraduate degree. So we were assuming that maybe business might be a nice springboard into that. However, he realized that that wasn't for him.
And so yeah, so which was a great thing to realize pretty quickly off as you're taking that. But then you were telling me you had some talks with him about experiences you had with hiring people yourself, and then kind of directed him, and he started. You advised him to go see his advisors. Is that correct?
Yeah. So once he realized after semester one, he realized I don't like business. So I'm like, okay, go talk to your advisors and start to figure out, the plan of attack. We already had talked to a clinical psychologist friend of mine who kind of gave him some guidance on what to do with that. However, he went to first off the business advisor, then he went to the exercise science advisor, and then he went to the psychology advisor. All of which he came out of all those discussions more confused than he went in. So there really wasn't a plan. So we were like, okay, if we're gonna be really efficient with this, we need to make sure you're taking classes that are going to be practical for life. But then on the other side, that you're going to be able to graduate in advance, early, right? Not wasting credits. And then where's the career look? What's it look like for the career? And he just really didn't get the advice that we were expecting. And I think it was just not practical advice. And I can relate to this too. On another note, as a physical therapist and a chiropractor, I do lecturing in 2 different universities, and I mentioned to the director of one of the physical therapy programs about the changes in healthcare and reimbursement and so forth. And the irony is they have no idea about it. So I think the bottom line was, practical education that you can use. And I don't know if you can get the greatest advice from people who aren't in the workforce actually doing it.
And then you were telling me that you combined what 2 or 3 of these majors to come up with a path for your son that with a set of courses that you thought would give him what he would need.
Right. So once I realized again from the book that I can be involved in the process, we started to figure out, okay, what is the best attack? We knew that he has to have a certain number of psychology credits to get his doctorate. So, but he likes the exercise science side of it, and there's a lot of freedom in that degree to take classes that could be practical in life. So we talked to a clinical psychologist, and then we started to really kind of piece it together, the curriculum. So for this next semester, he's taking classes in the summer, which we can talk about that as another opportunity, that are going to be prerequisites for the classes he'll take in the future. So we're really trying to streamline his academic process so that he gets the most of exercise science, which he needs that as a base for what he'd like to do in coaching as a basketball coach. He's a basketball player. And also the prerequisites for psychology, what he needs there, and then also business classes, which will be really critical for him to be able to, hopefully be able to open up his own practice someday.
So he's sort of designing his own major there with your help.
That's correct. And there's a lot of freedom to do that. And I think the difficult thing is that we trust in the advisement there, and in that trust, you might be taking classes that maybe aren't needed. So I think we can really streamline this to be more practical to what his needs are, and then be very efficient in the classes we take, because the expense of college is just tremendous.
You noticed that, did you?
Yes, I did notice. Yes, and then another really important thing in Bill's book was the trying to graduate in 3.5 years and taking classes in the summer community college. So per the book's advice, my son Ty took 2 classes, one biology class, and then he's going to take a chemistry class, both 4 credits. So he'll get 16 credits this summer. And the big difference there is we're paying about 1/4 of the price of what it costs him at his private school.
Yeah, you were talking about that. You were paying about $300 a credit for a course, as opposed to I think $1,200 a credit.
Yeah, it's a significant difference. And so it also allows him, and like I had the conversation with him, is you really can't make enough money in the summer at any job to not do it. When you look at the price of what it costs at his private college, he can't make enough money to do that. Now, when you're taking the college or the classes at a junior college, it's so much more cost effective. And that is going to get him ahead. And the ultimate goal is that he'll be able to graduate in 3.5 years per the book, and then start probably his master's in his what would be his senior year, his last year of basketball.
With a good amount of money still in his pocket.
That's correct.
Yeah, for the master's degree.
That's correct. And the other thing too on the credits, we're trying to have him take. You can take 12 to 18 to be a full-time student. And quite honestly, as a basketball player, they encourage him to take 12 credits during the basketball season. So he's actually going to be behind with that. So we've been encouraging him to take 18 credits when he can, And so far he's been able to do that. So he picks up an extra six credits, 3 to 6 credits during the semester. Plus he's taken 6 to 8 credits in the summer, which really gets him ahead of as far as graduating in advance and then saving dollars overall.
Yeah, and I think even more important as I'm listening to you, uh, than the money you're saving is the fact that you and your son, I know your wife is very much involved in this as well, are having these conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is a lot of parents just don't do.
And I think the big thing about the book is it really empowers you. It gives you an insider's view on what the academic process is like. And like I said before, I thought the biggest challenge I had was I felt like I was an outsider looking in, and he's an adult now. It's time to let him go. But the reality is, he doesn't have the life experiences that would allow him to be successful that way.
And let's talk about another thing where we think we saved you some money. How about the meal plan?
Okay, yeah, the meal plan definitely is expensive. So first off, it's expensive. When you looked at how much it costs per meal, you could easily go to a restaurant and pay for a meal at that price. The second thing we realize is that we lose meal swipes each week if he doesn't use it. So he has 14 swipes a week. If he doesn't use 14, he loses that. There's nothing carrying over. So my wife, Michelle, was animate about make sure you get your meal in, make sure you eat, and quite honestly, he did a great job at doing that. So every week he had his 14 meals, even if he went and got a snack or got something to grab and go, he got his swipe in. But it's very expensive, and you have to do it, right? As a freshman, they mandate that you do the meal plan. So that is one of those things where you're really captive, your captive audience to having that meal plan, and there's not much you can do about it.
Well, John, this is Memorial Day weekend, and it's nice of you to give up your time here. It comes to we actually have homes together right next door to each other, so it wasn't a big trip to come over here, but it was a big give for you to spend some of your Memorial Day with us and to help other parents. Is there any message you want to leave for parents,
Yeah.
as especially the parents who are because you got your next son now going
Yes.
starting freshman year, right?
Right. And the thing about it is this is a must read for anybody who has a student going to college. Even if they're in college, certainly if you can do it in advance, it's an absolute must read because it's going to save us thousands upon thousands of dollars, along with getting our kids ahead to graduate, on time, certainly, or if not early. And I was, after I read the book, and I was telling Bill, I mean, this should be something that is done in schools where you are in preparation. Guidance counselors could use this, where they could actually prepare the students and maybe even the parents for that potential of the looming education process and some of the pitfalls that are innately there.
Well, John, I think it's time to head back to the beach.
Thanks, Bill, and I really appreciate it.
All right, we'll see you this summer.
Okay, bye now.